the Radio Forest Podcast.
Ahmet, are you there, buddy?
I'm here. How you doing?
Great. How are you? It's great to talk to you today.
I'm happy to be here, man.
Before we talk about the new album, can I ask you about a couple of artists that I know you like? The first being Ozzy Out of Power Trip. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I love me some Ozzy, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know that I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but everything makes me nervous. Everything.
Well, yeah, here's my thing, and I just know that you're such a huge fan and you've known him for such a long time. I'm worried that we won't get to see him again on stage, and I just can't picture an era without Ozzy performing. And it just hit me like last week. I was like, well, what if that's it? And if there's something that's keeping him from getting on stage, that's pretty serious.
Yeah, I don't know the details, but I'm not too concerned about his health because obviously he's immortal. I think I'm more concerned about, it's probably was he leaking some sort of gamma radiation? It's probably out of concern for the rest of the other players on the tour. And he's always looking out for everyone else. So
I also wanted to ask you then, what do you think about the original members of Kiss saying no to the like the final shows on the reunion?
I are you referring to Ace and Ace saying no, or Gene and Paul saying no? I don't know which direction it's actually coming from. But, as a Kiss fan, I think it would be great if everyone had the final send off. But, it's such a large production, and, it's not necessarily the kind of thing that you just, can put on the makeup and kind of go and do it. If you're just coming into it, it's big. So there's a, it would be great as a Kiss fan, and I'm the biggest Kiss fan. I want everyone to get along. I want, first of all, I want them to somehow go back in time and, I don't want them to retire. How about let's just start there? That just seems crazy to me.
Yeah. My thought was too, again, that I thought the invitation was extended to get the original four on stage for like the very last show, or at least near the end.
That's what I heard too.
Yeah. And I think that Ace and Peter said no. And then Gene and Paul are like, guys, why? Like, but I don't really know the full details and why they wouldn't. I mean, I get it. Maybe like, thanks, but no thanks. I mean, it's a tough thing, but as Kiss fans, like just the original four is such a big part of that.
Well, I there's a lot of drama, obviously, between everybody. Things have been said that you can't really take back. And if I'm to understand, the hey man, come and play coming from Gene and Paul, I think that's probably a pretty generous offer to those guys. And bummed that they're not doing it, but I'll be there. I'm going to see some of these shows. I have to. It's mandatory for me.
Who have you seen more, Kiss or Ozzy?
It's pretty neck and neck. Maybe Kiss. Yeah, probably Kiss.
So, what are your earliest memories of seeing either of those bands live, or at least them coming in orbit of your life?
Oh man. It was so cool. My brother was in the Ultimate Sin music video. So that was my first time meeting the family, Ozzy and the fam. And then I just have really, really great memories. It never came out, but Ozzy Osbourne did a cover of Staying Alive on one of my brother's records. And for some reason, we couldn't use the vocals, and Donny Osmond replaced Ozzy Osbourne. But I've stayed in touch with the family here and there. It's always hilarious. Ozzy is so sweet, or at least he has always been so sweet to me. Sharon, I adore. So I don't know. I have just such big feelings about both Kiss and Ozzy, and they really meant a lot to me. I spent so much time with those records, and they still are amazing.
I think you can still, I don't know if there's video, but I know you can get the audio of the Staying Alive cover. And I assume that's not like re-put together. I think like the original has leaked out or at least not been taken down. I think you can find it on YouTube.
Well, it's a delight.
Double LP, Funky Nothingness. We're talking to Ahmet Zappa and his dad, Frank Zappa. You guys went into the vault. You've got access. You get 25 rare and previously unreleased tracks. When you go into this massive amount of music that you have access to with Frank's legacy, yep, how do you know if a song or a lyric or a riff hasn't already been used somewhere else? Because he had 60-some albums when he was alive. You got to have a team of people that check that, or was this album in its entirety just kind of waiting?
Well, we have, I have found working with, a few different estates that there's oftentimes someone like Joe Travers, who is our vaultmeister, who really is knowledgeable about all of these recordings. I mean, Joe has been working with the family for 20 plus years and been cataloging and preserving a lot of the material. So, he is definitely an essential part of how we do things, right? And in the same way we have in the vault, it's not just music, it's understanding the photo assets that we have. And whenever we're making a record, when we know who played on it, we'll reach back out to those people to see if they have any, memories. So we'll talk to them about it. And then typically if we're lucky enough, they'll write some liner notes. So it is an archaeological project every single time we're putting out a new record. And this one is pretty special. My dad had finished Hot Rats. This was a kind of moment where he was figuring out what he was going to do next in terms of the kind of band that he wanted to have. So you have some people that he really trusted, playing on the record, from Ian Underwood, but he, had met Ainsley Dunbar at some music festival in Belgium, and they got along, and Ainsley moved into the house, and he had, he's just a sick drummer. So on this particular record, you have some interesting folks that are, this is like to me, it's a gem. You have Don Sugarcane Harris, Max Bennett, who was, part of the Wrecking Crew. He was on bass. He had just finished Hot Rats. So, they're all hanging out at the record plant for the most part, and, writing these, unusual compositions. So for Zappa fans who want to hear unreleased tracks that have some ripping guitar solos, then this should be right up your alley. I always liked the stuff from the 70s, and this record really does has a great vibe. So Frank prepared a lot of this stuff, from the title track. He always wanted to call this record Funky Nothingness, and he had prepared a lot of it. But I think it just kind of sat there, like other things in the vault. Frank was always creating, so I think he just met Flo and Eddie, and that took him into a different direction. And this record maybe just didn't feel representative of the comedy and the fun that he was having with Flo and Eddie or something. I really couldn't tell you why this record didn't come out, but it's pretty awesome. I think if you are a Zappa fan, you listen, you're gonna really like it.
I don't think I've ever heard you refer to him as Dad. Have you always called him Frank?
Oh, we always called our parents Frank and Gail.
How did that start? Or is it just the way it was, I guess?
They said, "Hi, I'm Frank. I'm Gail." People always ask me about that, and my kids do that to me, and I don't tell them that they shouldn't, right? Yeah. I mean, they've kind of gotten into mom and dad mode now, but it just feels normal. It's my name. It was my parents' name, but I don't know. I would tell I tell my kids about it, and maybe the reason why they're giving me names like Papa, Poppy, Dad, or whatever, is just a rebel instinct to just call me certainly by my first name. But Yeah, I don't know. You know, my mother always referred to us as her personal adults. So if, you know, when we were really little, I don't know why. Don't know what to tell you, bro.
Yeah, just the way it is. Do you think this album then sounds like Rats? Does it sound like the next progression? Because you said you got some of the same people involved. Because Frank could do such different styles of music. Do you think it's just like the next step in that album? Does it sound like it fits right in that line?
No, Hot Rats has more instrumentals on it. I mean, and there certainly are instrumentals on this record. I I don't know that it sounds like it doesn't feel like to me like a successor to Hot Rats, but there's definitely you know, things that are vibey like it. You know, to me, what stands out is Frank's vocal performances on a few of the tracks, because he still had his voice box the way that you know, he was born with it before he had that accident where I mean, it wasn't an accident, he was attacked and pushed into the orchestra pit.
Oh yeah.
And at the Rainbow Theatre in the UK a few years later. So Frank has this really kind of youthful voice, and you know, he's got this yeah, you know, you don't normally hear him like kind of really belting it out. So you get a few of those on on this record. It's cool.
Had he ever talked about the incident with the flare gun that became, of course, the iconic Smoke on the Water? I've talked to Deep Purple several times about that night and the song and the jam and the fire, but I've never talked to you or your brother Dweezil. Did he ever mention it? Did Frank ever talk about that? Was that just a common thing at a mother's concert?
You know, I mean, we knew about it. It wasn't something that my dad was never really a guy who reminisced about the past. Truthfully, he was always like a great white shark, just kind of moving forward, fast as a shark, right? Just going.
Yes, yeah.
Always, you know, making new music. So there wasn't a lot of, you know, that happening. It was probably scarier for Moon, and you know, maybe Dweezil, but they're so little at that time.
They were there?
Well, no, just because that happened in I don't know, in the 70s. So you know, Moon was born I think in 68. So you know what I mean? It was more of the trauma of that kind of stuff. But
oh yeah,
you know, that tour was cursed. So you have this situation where you know, it was really expensive to be on the road. My dad was financing all those things, and you're at this show, and I guess they didn't want other people going in, so they locked the front. When someone, you know, caused the fire, you know, there was no way to get out. So Frank really had to keep everyone calm, and the organization, everyone was really, really lucky to get out alive, and they lost all of their instruments. So, you know, this was a situation where, you know, they had to go. My dad went into more debt. The decision was made to, no, let's keep going. So they rented a bunch of new gear, and that accident that I was telling you about, you know, a few weeks later, you have this incident where they almost all die in a fire, only to have my dad be attacked by a crazy person and pushed into the orchestra pit, where he broke his leg, broke his neck, forever. You know, my dad was in a lot of pain afterwards, forever, after that incident. And it changed how he you know, thought about playing with members of his organization. You know what I mean? He was like, hey, I'm gonna, you know, while he was in hospice, or not hospice, recovering, I should say. A lot of people kind of abandoned him. And he just turned that into a really creative time. And, you got a real shift in the kind of music that my dad made, which is cool.
We've got the author, Ahmet Zappa, the host of the Rock Tales podcast. Frank has the double LP Funky Nothingness put together by Ahmet, collection of 25 rare and unreleased tracks. Ahmet, thank you so much. We love the release out from the Frank archives, and thanks for taking the time to put all this stuff together.
Well, I appreciate you having me on the show. I hope everyone has a great rest of their week, and remember to always rock out with your cocktails out.